So yeah, I'm Anton, and with me is Christian. We're just decided to do a podcast where we could talk about various dev things. We both we work together, and we often want to chat about these things, but we never really get the time. So I thought it would be a good idea for us to chat about certain things in the development space and record it to put it out there for the world. And yeah,
Nice.
I started programming way back in the early 80s in Pascal. And then my journey, interestingly enough, followed the Anglo Helzberg's development. I started professionally in the early 2000s with Delphi. Then we moved to C#, and then I moved to TypeScript. And that's been me, done some fun things along the way. And how about you, Christian? What's been your development journey?
Yeah, it also a sort of non-traditional journey. I was given a computer at 12, and it's sort of back in the days where you had to figure it out. And I just really loved it. And then, yeah, I started out to be an architect, but I was more drawn to the technical things. And I got into music, but also into the technical side. And then I had an opportunity when I first moved to the Bahamas after university to work for a cable company that had this big Unix server, and they needed somebody to write scripts for it. And I was the only person that applied that could actually write scripting. And it sort of set me on this journey of seeing where I could go from bash scripts on a Unix server all the way up to now full stack, writing mostly JavaScript. And but I'm also a creative coder. I'm passionate about creating things with code beyond just business solutions. So I like to see it as an art form almost of creating experiences.
So yeah, one of the things that I've seen over the years is an interesting trend from, as you say, back in the day we had to figure it out. I remember writing my own client server protocol because things just didn't exist.
Right.
What we take for granted now with REST APIs and all of that stuff didn't exist. Even back in early 2000, that stuff just wasn't there. And the progression from that to where we are now is kind of similar to the progression I see with no code, low code. And then the new one is generative AI.
Yep.
We build our own low code system, and we're looking at how do we even replace the bits and pieces of like SQL script or a little bit of JavaScript with generative AI in our product.
Yep.
So it's an interesting take. You worked for a while in a big no code platform. How would you describe it? How would you see that trend going?
Yeah, I think that it's a nice blending of the two, because even the no-code platforms, although I agree with you, they've come a long way, from having to write, all the server-side stuff yourself. It still isn't as flexible, so you still get into those situations where you have a technical thing you have to solve, and the platform just doesn't quite get you there. So I think that's where a platform like that has AI also with it to fill in those gaps. And I think that's what I'm finding too. If I can offload some of that really, domain specific knowledge, maybe, to an AI for this project, then I don't have to become an expert in that. And that, I think that applies to this no code thing, because right now, they're trying to sell it to sort of the business analyst profile person who understands the business. But none of the tools I've seen yet are anywhere near the language of a business person. So I think it's only AI that's going to help bridge that gap.
Yeah, and that's what I've seen with low code is you can low code away the syntax,
right.
But you can't low code away the programmatical thinking that is required to build a low code system.
Yep, to do simple things like, CRUD operations, just to set that up. You can have a system that never says database, but you're still going with reading, writing, and updating, and how to do that efficiently using the tools, how to make sure you're not duplicating records. As you say, that's not the businessman's concern. The guy who wants to know his business report, and that's what this app is usually, generating something for that guy. He does not even want to know about foreign keys or anything like that.
Yeah, or about, an if then, or the logic behind if then, or the logic behind how do I handle errors. And
Right.
unfortunately, that's what I've seen, is that these systems still require a person to think in a programmatical way.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't think there's a way around that, even, and I think AI doesn't solve that problem, but what it does do is it helps to build, I think, more flexible systems.
Yeah.
But then there's the other side where AI just says, hey, bugger no code. I can go to AI and generate huge amounts of code that I don't have to manually code. And is that the way forward? Is that actually the way forward for, instead of trying to build systems that go crazy with low code, do we just generate it all?
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. Coming from a musical background in music production, right? Thinking about it in those terms, there is also this type of a creator that just gets all the sources and puts it together. I might not actually know how to program a drum machine, but I can go and get loop samples from lots of different sources, and I can produce a track. And I think that's what you're seeing, is that maybe it's still not the business user, it's still the very technical business user, but it is getting more empowering for that user. Because now he can say, I don't need to know how to write a script. I just need to know how to run the script and make sure that it gives me the right output. That's
yeah.
I mean,
I had that. I was doing some data generation the other day, and my gosh, I've never programmed in Python, but within an hour or two, I was generating data.
Yep.
Just through using AI, getting the scripts, figuring it out, and bang, I got done what I needed to get done. And I see there's going to be a lot of that, a lot of that type of work, and easy to learn. I mean, where have you recently used your AI in that type of way?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned iterative. I've found that I'm still developing the best iterative process, that fine line between not asking too much to where it gets vague, and asking for just enough to where I'm offloading the value. But yeah, let me share my screen here for a second, and I'll show you just a quick example of Paddle. And yeah, this is just an example of a project that I'm doing where I've just made a conscious effort to say I'm not going to write any code here. I'm going to use AI as my coding assistant or coding employee, what have you. And it's doing quite a lot of things quite well. It implemented this calendar component, a React calendar component that I've never worked with. And I didn't have to do anything except specify it. I did read the first maybe paragraph of the documentation, so I knew what to specify. But probably in the future, if I get that right, I don't even have to specify that. So it's probably built. I could spend more time trying to get the look and feel like the iCloud website, which I really liked the feel of that. So I spent more time there because this wasn't a technically challenging project. It was just more about putting a pleasing user interface in front of somebody. So the AI was really good at that. And it used the components that I specified. Like I was able to say, use Prime React components and use this CSS theme, which I'm really loving that.
Yeah, I haven't used it as that in depth, but I've used it a lot. I've been doing a project where we're converting quite a complex Excel spreadsheet into a website. And I was like, it had a VBA bunch of functions at the back, and I tried to upload the entire VBA file, and it kind of gave me half back. So eventually I just went, eventually I just went function for function, in, out. Took about an hour, but really to convert a 600 line VBA file to TypeScript in an hour or 2 hours is phenomenal compared to, pre-AI, that would have been 2 days. And you would have not only done 2 days, you would have had to understand every single function. I mean,
Yep.
I converted it. I understand most of what it's doing. But then again, once I'd converted it, using Codinium and VS Code,
Right.
I was able to click on it and just say, generate the code,
Mm-hmm.
the description
unit
of
test.
each function.
Oh,
And
I
that
see.
way,
Yeah.
it knew what that function did, and it
Mm.
could put it up there. And now I understand what the code's doing,
Yes.
even
yes.
though, in a sense, I didn't write it. And then on top of that, I did unit tests through Codinium for every single function. So now I
Okay.
know the code works. It's got documentation on it, TypeDoc, and it's got unit tests,
Yeah.
all within 2 days.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Pre this, that was a week, if not more's worth of work. And so, yes, you can use it to create, a big complex website like you've done, or you can use just in bits. And I think that's a thing that a lot of people miss, is that it's that little, if you take a 10-minute job and you make it 30 seconds and you do that regularly, you've saved 2 hours of, in your day. In that, there was a table in Excel, and I wanted it into an array for my unit test. And I'm like, this is a pain. I started typing, and then I'm like, no, don't do that. Copy the table, dropped it into ChatGPT, give it to me as a JSON string. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
10 seconds later, into the unit test, done.
Exactly.
And I think that's just really amazing from where I've come to be able to be at that place where really it's like having a junior developer who's really, really fast and really, really proficient to get stuff done for you, whatever you want.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, and that it's very interesting too that I'm seeing lots of different sort of skills around. You mentioned ChatGPT, but I'm also seeing there's a guy who used to work for OpenAI. It's a French guy who now started a company called Anthropic, and they have a similar to ChatGPT called Claude. And after Claude Shannon, who was one of the founders of information theory, but this AI is really good at writing front end stuff. So some of the like JavaScript code and function calling around managing the data, ChatGPT did, but I would then do the front end in Claude, just asking it, here's the HTML, because so I think that we're getting to this, like, just like you said, I'll have an assistant, but I'll have a number of ones that before they all are perfected, I'll have a number of ones that I'll draw on for different things.
You'll have an assistant to do your front end, and an assistant to do your conversion, and an assistant to do the documentation and all of this.
But what do you think too? I just want to ask from your experience too, somebody who I've learned too about sort of the pitfalls of poor quality code. What you mentioned there, obviously you have an understanding of what quality, what the standard is, and you've now figured a prompt to create that standard, right? But if I use the analogy of the image generators, there's guys who can get it now to look like you would not be able to tell from a professional photographer, but most people are just making cartoons with big boobs.
No, I get that. So here's an interesting problem. One of the functionalities that I brought across uses Octane 2, which I never really came across, but be that as it may. And damn, I couldn't get this to work. And eventually that took good old-fashioned, Googling. I love that old-fashioned Googling.
Exactly.
But what I realized is Excel, for some reason, has the A and B parameters, the X and Y parameters, the inverse to how Node does it. So I wasn't getting the correct And the AI didn't know that.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
So all of my TypeScript was wrong. And I had to go through, once I figured that out, which was on the low level, opening up various websites, typing in the values, getting it calculated. I finally found one website that told me, watch out for Excel.
I see. Yeah.
So there are things like that, that although you get this code back, you still have to go through the process of testing it. I mean, I still sat with the spreadsheet and my code and the unit tests and made sure that everything I was getting out of the unit test matched what was in the spreadsheet. And I don't think that'll ever go away. I mean, that's just has to be done. But I agree with you. Everything that I've seen out of AI is not 100%. And some of it is just darn weird.
Yeah. Some of the, so I've been using Copilot. You've used Codinium. I was using Copilot for quite a while. I paused it and I was trying different things. I even used this one, can't remember the name of it, but basically I could speak, give it commands and it would generate the code. Worked pretty well. But I did find with Copilot, it has some bad coding practices that it repeats. Like, you can ask it to say, oh, wait, don't repeat yourself, and it will then go and fix it. But I think this is also goes to it's trained on a lot of inferior quality code, so that you almost have to be that QA expert, like you're saying, for it. If you're working with a junior, maybe they're going to write and repeat themselves throughout the whole code base, and you have to tell them, go back and do it again. But that loop only happens within minutes, like you said, not a couple days. That's what's exciting.
And I also discovered AI is terrible at maths.
Yes, yeah.
I would have thought that the AI would be able to do complex maths, but that's not the case. It tries to do maths in a kind of how a human would mentally break down a maths equation.
Right.
So, if you want to do this, you would say, okay, well, this time, well, that's close enough to, and you'd kind of get a rough, you'd break it apart, and that's what it does. Whereas it doesn't always get the right answer.
That's right.
It doesn't work. It's not a calculator.
Right.
If you want to do maths, use a calculator. Don't use AI, because it's going to come out wrong.
Yeah, no, we've had this with Braden and, my daughter and her math, and, she's in 8th grade now. And so they're getting into a little bit more advanced algebra and plotting graphs and stuff. Similar to you, I naively at the beginning thought that it was going to be a lifesaver, but I found that it's just knows enough to make me learn more math to support her. It doesn't know enough to replace me.
But what it can do is it can explain what's going on and how it's doing the calculation. And I think that's really important. That's what I found throughout this whole thing, is that all these calculations, all these algorithms I was putting into it, it would explain what it's doing and why it's doing that. And I think that's critical in terms of trying to become a better developer and understanding those things.
That's right. Yep. No, so that's 100%.
In all of this, what would you say would be your kind of dev highlight, sweet spot that you've done in the short while?
Yeah, and this week, I mean, I put together, I've been playing a lot with Cloudflare, and what I like about their platform is that they put a lot of the open source AI models available inside your workers, so you can run it on their platform. A lot of the newer ones are in beta still, so you can get unlimited requests for free still. And they just released Llama 3.1 Instruct, which, they're saying it performs better in some sorts of coding tasks than ChatGPT even. So it's just cool that open source is keeping up in this area. And that's sort of what made my week, that just I had all of my sort of like little test environments, my learning environments that I do for the kids. I'll demo some of those in future podcasts, but I had them all on an older model, and I was just able to go in and paste the new model in there, and with no infrastructure issues on my side. So the availability of this stuff is just making my day.
Yeah, I mean, I would say kind of a non-AI side. I got something to work. You kind of have a vision in your mind of what your page wants to look like and how you're going to interact with it. This is a very interactive site. And I was able to fairly rapidly today, after I'd refactored a number of things, get that in. And, the first time you kind of slide your slider or your zoom and it all works and you're like, oh, that's funky. You kind of spend all day, up and down.
Yes.
And then we had put that generative Mongo stuff into our platform and demoing it this morning to someone. And it's just like, that's still pretty cool. We can push it further, in our next release, but that's just pretty cool to be able to do that. And so that's both ends, that what makes you smile as a developer.
Yeah, just a question. We don't have to go into it now, maybe for a future podcast, but have you, in that Mongo thing, did you use function calling?
Yes,
yes. I did. Okay, well then we need to go deeper because Cloudflare has now an embedded function calling feature. So we can talk about that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I had just briefly, but I used the function to be able to upload a structure that told the AI what all the fields were available and what their type was.
Yes. Okay. Yep.
So that it knew, because it needs to know what the field names are, what type they are, so that it can build up the correct pipeline. So yes, no, that was integral to getting that to work. Absolutely integral.
Yeah, yeah, because that standardizes and sort of makes it more predictable outputs.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Very good.
Anything else? Any tips, tricks, anything you want to leave the people or those who are our first-time listeners?
Yeah, just more to come. I'm excited about this. I've learned so much in the years that we've been working together, and just having a forum like this where we could share and see where the conversation goes is really exciting. So I'm looking forward to future ones and seeing how things continue.
Yeah, my vision with this is to at some point get some different people on, some guests.
Nice.
I don't know who, but we'll get them. And talk about things various. I mean, I think we're going to delve into the world of Scrum at some point, and the world of QA, and other things that developers do, and what we do as a team. We can share some of that at some point. But I think this isn't just about coding. This is about development in the dev space. And
nice. Yeah. Well, the devspace.net, right?
Yeah,
the devspace.
That's us. There'll be more to come on that as we build this out, and maybe on there we could put up a space to some questions. But in the meantime, if you do find us, just put questions into the comments in YouTube, and we'll see what we can do about answering them.
Yep.
Anything else?
No, just enjoy. And that's it.
And play with the AI.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, enjoy this newfound having an assistant. All right, it's fun to chat with you, Anton. Thanks so much.
Okay.
We'll chat soon.
And we're gonna try and do this weekly.
Yep.
All right. And we'll take it from there. Thanks.
You too.
Cheers.
Awesome.